Hello, Gunner James 105. Today I have a video that I had made the next section 2 days ago, and thought I would do this little introduction regarding this rifle, the SVT-38. In all my travels through the biggest gun show in Canada, that I think I've gone 3 times now, and other gun shows. Anywhere I've traveled on the internet to try and find this rifle, this model for sale, can't find it. Found a fella that was selling quite a few rifles and handguns, and between my son-in-law and I, we are both involved in the collecting and had picked up quite a few things. This one is quite rare. This one is not only rare, but in absolutely beautiful condition. So I tried to get as much information as I could in this video that I could find. There's really only about 3 videos. I mention that later in the next part, but I did miss out on a couple of things, and so it had to do with the flash hider. So this rifle here, this is what we're talking about today. And so the flash hider, just one of the things that they mention is, and I've not shot this, but the SVT-40 I have, and so that the gases will go up and back on that when that fires. And the other thing had to do with the gas port settings. And so I'd written that down. They're marked out. It's quite small, at least for my eyes. 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.5, and 1.7. And you would have a special tool that would adjust that. You could do it with a pair of pliers, but you wouldn't want to mark that up. And yeah, 1.5 is the normal setting on that, but should you need to adjust that, depending on ammunition, etc., you can make that adjustment. Unlike the one rifle that's in the collection now, the Youngman rifle, the semi-automatic. And so this rifle, which I'll show you close-ups further down the line. The first section basically deals with the history. Then I give you a lot of close-ups and make comparisons with an SVT-40. But yeah, it just amazes me the condition it's in, the bluing it's in. Nothing indicates that it was refurbished anywhere, and it's in pretty nice condition everywhere you look. We haven't decided whether we want to shoot it. I mean, I'm sure it will be fine, but you sure wouldn't want to have any damage caused to something this rare. And I think that we'll leave it at that, and then we'll go on to the next section. And so hang tight, and I hope you enjoy it. Subscribe, press like. Thank you. The SVT-38. So up front on the table is a beautiful example. It's in quite good condition. And the one behind it is the SVT-40. So I'm going to give you a bit of a history and a bit of information, and then in the next section I'm going to have some close-ups and show you the differences between the two and some of the reasons why changes were made to this rifle that made it a better rifle, perhaps. And so previous attempts at semi-automatic firearms were attempts converting bolt action rifles, and no matter how hard anybody tried, that never seemed to work out. So Fedor Tokarev, who'd been working on this design I think for about 20 years, came up against Simonov, who had his ABS-36. And these trials were in 1936, where Simonov had won that competition and was awarded the contract for the military's rifles. But his rifles, as good as they worked in trials, when they got into Finland, the problems started showing up, and that was broken firing pins and jamming in cold weather, and it had a very harsh recoil. It was a select fire, as was the 1916 Fedorov of World War I. They were both select fire. The Fedorov had a 6.5 Arasaka round, whereas these are the 7.62x54R. So they had troubles, and 1938 there were new trials. I believe Semenov tried to fix his problems on the AVS 36. Tokarev was ready with his, and the close friendship, it's believed, with Tokarev and Joseph Stalin was partially why he won the contract. And so the SVT-38 was chosen, and they started making them mid-39, but didn't start mass production until, I believe it was October of 39, the first part of October, and they switched over, or changed to the SVT-40, so they quit building the SVT-38 in about April, mid-April. Now there's a lot of people who, I wouldn't say a lot, but any information I can find on the SVT-38 regarding the numbers produced, it varies from as much as 190,000 to 160,000, and some believing with the limited time of production of 6 months, and the Soviets were known to pad numbers, that the more realistic number would be less than 100,000. And most of those were lost, damaged, or rebuilt into SVT-40s. I'm not sure the wood on the SVT-38, but there is mention made regarding the SVT-40 that they changed to Arctic birch. And so whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. And so in research as well, they are saying that the modifications, part of it was to lighten the weight of the rifle, but I can't find information other than it listed for the SVT-40 at 8.5 pounds, whereas I can't really see what weight difference there was. So I weighed these rifles, and this SVT-40, which is not loaded, comes in at 9.4 pounds, and the 38 comes in at 10.2 pounds. So obviously there was some weight savings there. The overall length of the rifle is 48 inches. It has, with the standard ball ammo, they're saying 2,545 feet per second. And so the close-ups is what's necessary next, because anxious to show you the differences and some of the markings, etc. on this. So we'll go to the next part. Hang tight. Oh, just for the heck of it, before I start, Tokarev is responsible for the TT-30 and then TT-33. This is a 1945 dated. If you watch a previous video of mine, I've got 8 different types, manufacturers of the Tokarev handgun. So anyways, moving on to the differences between these two rifles. Right away, the first thing is this seam here, because this is a 2-piece lower, whereas your 40 model is a 1-piece, and it's actually a little less beefy as far as the wood material, so it's been lightened up a bit. It's a little sleeker that way, but this, I believe, they thought was maybe a weak point, that a 1-piece would be a better design. And so the other thing was the length of the wood that went all the way out here, and you'll see that there are 5 grooves compared to 4 on the other one, Those were for cooling. So they've eliminated the wood, probably in comparison to the two, right about there, as you can see, and replaced it with the metal, which is a lot lighter. And so, as I had explained, I think they've chopped off more than a pound anyways off this rifle. And so they went to the longer stamped metal here. And the next thing that you'll notice is the cleaning rod, or the first thing you'll notice, because as soon as you see what I would call the right side of this rifle, the traditional way of putting a cleaning rod underneath the barrel, this was easier and cheaper and whatever else to do. So right on the bayonet lug, there's a spring-loaded little keeper here that when you push that down, your cleaning rod will come out. Whereas this one is held at this end, like so. And then as we cruise down, you'll also see, the extra band there, which is not on the other rifle. So we've got a mid band, and it's got the little piece that's bent up, the same on the front here, to allow for that cleaning rod to pass through. And as we go down, there's a good close-up of that joint. We come to the end here where we've got, now I've kind of lifted this up a little bit here because it's kind of with one hand, a little hard to pull out of there. So you get your fingernail under there, and this will pivot up, and you've got a T-handle, and you can just pull that right out. And it's reinforced inside there. There's metal. And so that is a huge difference between the two rifles, and it snaps into place like so. And while I'm down here, the safety on this one, just a little different in the look of it. So if you're looking at trying to get my lighting right, but you can see it is like so, and on the 40, whether that's to lighten things up again, but there's a hole in that, and it works just simply by blocking the trigger from moving back and firing. Oops, sorry about the shakiness there. This particular one is the stock that was used, or would have been used, for the automatic firing. And we know this because of the A, which, yeah, is right there. So there's the A in the stock. And then we also have this groove here. So you'll notice that the safety moves back over to this side into that groove. And if this were a full auto, it would come up onto the other side for the automatic firing of this rifle. So the barrel, the receiver, everything, the internal workings are all excuse me, the same. The magazine, SVT 40. Now that was one of the problems that they had corrected, is that on the 38, when you're all excited in the heat of battle, etc., and you bump that spring goes forward and out comes your magazine, and that was one of the complaints. And when you look at this one here, well, it works pretty much the same way, except for the fact that you can pivot that up like so. So now we don't have that problem of that magazine falling out. So quite a big difference in that. The original SVT 38s, the first magazines had divots on both sides that you would compress here to remove the plate on the bottom, Whereas then they went to this style here, which both of these rifles have, where you push that pin in to slide that plate forward to pull that spring and everything out of there. The slings on these are different in the way that they attach, whereas we've got this type of swivel up front, and on the early SVT-40s had that same type of swivel mounted here, and then they went to the solid type swivel there, and on the back end they're pretty much the same, but because of the positioning of this further forward on the rifle, a correct sling, which I don't have on this is an SVT-40 sling, but the correct sling was about 7 inches longer. So you can see that as it is, this is about as far extended as I can get on this, and it's still pretty short. So you'd kind of wish to have, or want to have, a little more length on that. So then, something slight that may not be noticed, there's a couple things on this end. So the flash hider, or what have you, of course the SVT-40 early designs had these 6 ports, and then they went to a 4 port. It was just 2 big holes on each side. But there's a difference in the diameter on the SVT-38, so this is larger than on the 40, so they saved a little weight there as well. There's a tool that I don't have, a couple of tools that would be necessary for this rifle, and one of them has to do with adjusting the sight, because both of these have a front sight that can be adjusted, so that can be drifted left or right there to get your windage. And then through the top you would have a T-handle type tool that would go down in and fit onto that sight, and you could turn that down or up for an adjustment on your elevation. And there is a difference between these two, pretty hard to show on camera. The sight on this one, the threads, if you look at it through the front here, the threads go to the top of the sight, and it's a solid piece, whereas this one, you don't see the threads in there until just the very bottom, and there's a hole passing through, as well as if you could get a pin in there to turn that if you didn't have the proper tool. I'll try and turn that and give you a view. So that's the one. Oops. And then I will show you the other. I guess maybe that won't turn out so bad. And so, if that's able to focus on that, that's what we're looking at there. This plum color on the SVT-40, I don't know if that was part of the, because this has been re-arsenaled. And that's one thing on this one here. There's no marks, finish marks, SA marks. There's no import marks. There's no refurbishment marks. So it appears to be, other than the magazine not having a matching number, the bolt, everything is all matching. And as I was saying, the condition of the rifle and the bluing, the wood, it's in an amazing condition. I've seen these sold in much rougher condition for as much as $5,000 in the US, but this is giving you the markings on that, and this is a Tula, the other one's a Tula. These were made, the 38s were made at Ijevsk and Tula. Tula made more of them. I think the other factory was kind of forced to go back to the 9130s because of the time it took to build these. And you can charge or use a charger to load these. Of course, that would be normally a 10-round magazine. It's been pinned for Canada to 5, but that's the 7.62x54R and its charger. And so something that is quite rare is a bayonet for these. I don't know if I'd ever come across a correct SVT 38 bayonet. They are different, and there was a few different variations. The SVT 40 is hard enough to find a bayonet for, but luckily we have one. And so this also is quite rare, and these things are anywhere from $350 and up. They're a little difficult to come by. And this one, there's the scabbard for it. It's missing the strap. Normally frog, it was just a canvas type strap or leather strap that would go through here and then onto your belt. But otherwise, this is an original SVT 40 bayonet. I'm trying to, oh there we go. Trying to give you that view. So this is also a Tula bayonet. The sights were tangent type on the rear, out to 1500 yards. Sorry, meters. So 1500 meters in 100 meter increments. And like any of these, you're just going to squeeze and then push this forward to wherever you want to set that, whatever yards. They both have the grooves in the receiver for the addition of a sniper scope. The takedown is the same for this one as the other. The trigger is just a little bit different, I noticed, as far as it comes apart. But I'll just go across the top of this thing. The other one I noticed, I believe it has a reinforcing bolt through it, through the stock. But if you're researching this or you're wanting a good look at what should be correct, I believe this rifle is a good example. There's a few cartouche type markings. I don't recall if I go down the other side. The serial number is very faint, but it's there. And again, just try and give you the best close-ups I can on this here. What I believe it should look like. And bayonet lug, and you can see the differences. Basically no cleaning rod spring button on that one, but they work the same. That bayonet should just one hand difficult. Okay, here we go. Click. So there it is. And so that pretty much covers it. The magazine is actually blocked inside this one. Normally there's a rivet, but it would interfere with the installation, so it's done inside of here. And here's that, what I would say is a repair reinforcement on that. But we're not here so much to, there's a lot of videos on SVT-40, but I can honestly say if there's two, maybe three on the SVT-38, now 4. So I hope you got something from this. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a very rare rifle, and I must also add it's not been fired by me yet, so as far as I can tell there should be no problem. One doesn't want to maybe take a chance on something old and rare, but I think we have to. I think that's, as far as this thing looks, there's nothing wrong with it. It'll work just fine. Thanks for watching. The SVT-38. So up front on the table is a beautiful example. It's in quite good condition. And the one behind it is the SVT-40. So I'm going to give you a bit of a history and a bit of information, and then in the next section I'm going to have some close-ups and show you the differences between the two and some of the reasons why changes were made to this rifle that made it a better rifle perhaps. And so previous attempts at semi-automatic firearms were attempts converting bolt action rifles, and no matter how hard anybody tried, that never seemed to work out. So Fedor Tokarev, who'd been working on this design I think for about 20 years, came up against Simonov, who had his ABS 36. And these trials were in 1936, where Simonov had won that competition and was awarded the contract for the military's rifles. But his rifles, as good as they worked in trials, when they got into Finland, the problems started showing up, and that was broken firing pins and jamming in cold weather, and it had a very harsh recoil. It was a select fire, as was the 1916 Fedorov of World War I. They were both select fire. The Fedorov had a 6.5 Arasaka round, whereas these are the 7.62x54R. So they had troubles, and 1938 there were new trials. I believe Simonov tried to fix his problems on the ABS 36. Tokarev was ready with his, and the close friendship, it's believed, with Tokarev and Joseph Stalin was partially why he won the contract. And so the SVT-38 was chosen, and they started making them mid-39, but didn't start mass production until I believe it was October of 39, first part of October, and they switched over, or changed to the SVT-40, so they quit building the SVT-38 in about April, mid-April. Now there's a lot of people who, I wouldn't say a lot, but any information I can find on the SVT-38 regarding the numbers produced, it varies from as much as 190,000 to 160,000, and some believing with the limited time of production of 6 months, and the Soviets were known to pad numbers, that the more realistic number would be less than 100,000. And most of those were lost, damaged, or rebuilt into SVT-40s. I'm not sure the wood on the SVT-38, but there is mention made regarding the SVT-40 that they changed to Arctic birch. And so, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. And so, in research as well, they are saying that the modifications, part of it was to lighten the weight of the rifle, but I can't find information other than it listed for the SVT-40 at 8.5 pounds, whereas I can't really see what weight difference there was. So I weighed these rifles, and this SVT-40, which is not loaded, comes in at 9.4 pounds, and the 38 comes in at 10.2 pounds. So obviously there was some weight savings there. The overall length of the rifle is 48 inches. It has, with the standard ball ammo, they're saying 2,545 feet per second. And so the close-ups is what's necessary next, because anxious to show you the differences and some of the markings, etc. on this. So we'll go to the next part. Hang tight.